Hey there, Flora here, and on today's episode of Jam Packed Business Made Easy, we have a guest that I am lucky enough to call both a friend and a collaborator. Vivienne of Vivid Services wears a lot of hats. She's gone from corporate marketer to yoga teacher, bookkeeper, English coach, executive coach, consultant, and she somehow manages to show up in all of her roles with warmth and clarity. In this episode today, we talk about what it means to own your story, to reinvent yourself without losing yourself, and how we can stay grounded and human in an increasingly AI driven world. So, if you've ever struggled with the question, what do you do? Because you wear so many hats, this one's for you.
Hello, Vivienne. How are you today?
I am great, Flora. How are you? Super stoked to be on the podcast. I'm really excited. I follow your podcast every week, so I'm super excited.
Cool. Thanks. And I'm so excited about this pun that I'm about to share because it just came to me.
Always down for something funny.
Okay. So for those who aren't watching this YouTube, Vivienne has a lot of hats behind her. And my pun will be, Vivienne, I see you wear a lot of hats. Okay.
I do.
Okay.
I wear a lot of hats in my life. And,
tell us about
on my head and, in other places, in other ways. Okay, so all of the hats that I wear. So I am a veteran of corporate marketing in California, Silicon Valley. I worked primarily with tech. I did some other work in the wine industry and hospitality as well. I've sort of reinvented myself many times. Yoga instructor, yoga studio owner, back to marketing, bookkeeper. And now I'm a business and marketing consultant. That was one of my favorite iterations, which I'm kind of going back to at this point, but also expanding because I'm also a certified executive leadership coach. So I do freelance work for some amazing clients that covers business, low-level administration, higher-level strategy. I also am an conversational English coach to people all over the world, which is very interesting. I still do some bookkeeping. So I'm kind of, and I'm about to launch a coaching business, which I don't really want to talk about yet, but that's in the works. So those are my many hats.
Yeah, and I'm sure you have other hats as well that you didn't even mention. So I was really excited to talk to you for many reasons. One, we're friends, and I just think you're cool. And two, there are lots of, I'm seeing a lot of people that, and myself included, when people ask, oh, what do you do for work? It's kind of like, ooh, well, who am I talking to? It kind of depends how it relates to you, what I do for work, because I also wear so many hats, right?
Right.
And I've talked to a few people, members of GMAI and just people just that are friends in my personal and professional network that also wear many hats. And I've been thinking a lot about this lately because to me, it's the person is really kind of the brand, right? And that is a whole, I think that's so fascinating in itself. So talk to me a little bit more about like your brand and what you're bringing to each of these facets.
Wow, that's a question. So my brand, I work kind of under the umbrella of Vivid Services. My name is Vivienne Damari, and so Vivid. I'm kind of a vivid personality, so it kind of works together.
Kinda.
And good. And my services are many, and so but my brand is really kind of has continuity, right? So it's very much based in my experience, but also my personality. I'm very agile. I am, a quick study. I can jump in and act as somebody else when I need to, or I can slow way down and like really be an amazing listener to someone who's in pain and is trying to work through a problem. I can be an abstract creative thinker, and I can be a very linear, logical thinker. Like bookkeeping needs that. So, business strategy needs that. So my brand is multifaceted, like I am, I guess. And so, but I'm still me. And so the brand itself is casual, smart, funny, flexible, dependable.
Yeah.
That's sort of where I would ground my brand.
Well, and I'm so excited to explore this more because you and I aren't the only ones out there wearing many hats. Like I said, I'm really starting to see this more and more in other places. And I'm curious on the backside how that's going to kind of catch on. In a past life, I was a corporate recruiter, right? And I would type in the keywords for the specific CRMs that were needed or the specific codes or whatever, right? Like, and I'm curious how this is going to evolve even from the perspective of those searching for less someone to fit a particular role and more for someone who is their brand. I don't know. I haven't really thought it through yet, but it is really interesting to me. So,
but I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying, and I think that this ties into AI in a really sort of critical way. I mean, when we first started, talking about AI, you're like, AI is amazing. You should do all the things with AI, and I'm like, AI is the devil. I don't want to do that. It's an existential threat. It's all these horrible things, and you're like, okay, boomer. I'm not a boomer, but I was acting like one. So I got over myself and I let you lead me down the golden path of AI. And what I've discovered is that while I still believe that this highly disruptive, rapidly evolving technology does pose an existential threat that we haven't really fully scoped yet. But I also believe that this is not the first time we've seen this, right? So we saw it with the wheel, we saw it with fire, we saw it with when people went from horses to cars, radio, streaming radio, the Industrial Revolution. I mean, we experience major disruptive change through technology constantly.
yeah.
This one feels more personal, right? And so there's a lot of conversation around how do I survive this? How does my job survive this? What does it look like, right? If AI is taking all the jobs, which I don't believe is real, right? It will take some stuff, but what it means to me is that we really have to dig into our humanity, right? What makes us human and how we drive AI.
Totally.
I had a really interesting conversation with one of my English students today. And she works for a marketing agency, and they're working with another agency that's using AI to create a mascot for them. And they're making these videos of this mascot doing all these things all over Istanbul. And I'm like, that's cool. She goes, yeah, except that every time I get a video, it's a different mascot. And so we got into this conversation about the differences between doing it yourself, using AI, where AI is, blah, blah, blah. And, sort of came to the conclusion that what we need in this context, right, is the creatives with the vision to be able to talk to prompt AI, while, the back end guys are coding and making it all happen. That still needs to happen together, right? So people aren't going away. We just need to learn how to talk to it, right?
Yeah.
And make friends with AI.
Figure it out. So speaking of wearing many hats, one of my hats called with kind of a 911 during that. So let's pick that back up. Anyway, what were we talking about? You were telling me about your student. And I think I actually, do you mind telling us a little bit more about, because when I think people hear English coaching, they don't really grasp the full extent of what you're doing.
Right. So There are a number of ways and a number of platforms, right, that people use to, learn how to speak English. I think everybody or most everybody, gets taught a second language at school, like it's a requirement, and they teach you the mechanics of language, right? They teach you, vocabulary, spelling, grammar, and you take some tests and you pass, hopefully. And they're like, cool, you learned a language, but you can't use it really,
Yeah.
right? So what what I do working with people is work with the skill level they come with. I work with intermediate level speakers and above, high level beginners sometimes, depending on where they are and what they're doing. And we work through how to use English just conversationally, whether we're talking about life or business or the world being on fire sometimes,
Yeah.
but we use everything. We read articles together and we discuss them, which is interesting because that provides not just a topic, but also, pushes them to use language that they wouldn't normally, right? When we're learning a language, as you know, as we're both bilingual, and it's a continuous lifelong process, right?
Yeah.
But we rely on the things we say most often because that's what's like in the front of the mental drawer, right? We're like, I'm just pulling out those words because they're right there. But you really got to reach for the stuff that's way back in the file drawer. And so using other materials, having conversations about things, cultural differences, for example, right, that you don't normally talk about with someone, especially not a native speaker of a language, pushes you to use your language. And then we refine it, right? So they have a skill. Now we're polishing it. Okay. So we have typically language learners use the language they're learning more correctly than native speakers. Like no one speaks the way we're supposed to, according to the
That makes sense.
right?
Yeah.
We don't. So, I get these very correct, but very awkward statements from people. I'm like, okay. And I'll stop them and I'll say, yeah, okay, that's absolutely correct and very clear. However, people don't really talk like that unless they're in a highly formalized situation. So here's how you might say that on the regular, right? Speaking of incorrect English. Um, And so they have an opportunity to try things in an environment that is safe. They make mistakes. We laugh a lot about pronunciation. And then they make me to try to say words in their language that I can't. And then it's all just funny. Everyone's laughing. So it's really coaching. And I have to say that I don't know how my throat just there, but it died. Um, like a third of what I do is build confidence with people.
I love that.
Every single person shows up and says, my English is terrible. I can't, and they say it just like this. My English is terrible. I can't remember any vocabulary. My grammar is awful. I mean, and everything they're saying is absolute perfect English. And I'm like,
Well, and I love that you said the confidence piece because one of my many hats is I have a nonprofit and we teach English through dance, right? So we serve non-native English speaking students from lower socioeconomic areas and we teach them how to communicate through creative movement. And at the end of the day, like I can talk about total physical response and content-based instruction and the linguistic methods we use, but at the end of the day, we teach confidence. Like
right.
we don't even teach confidence. We empower it. We facilitate it. We welcome it.
Right.
Encourage
Yeah.
it.
Exactly. And I'm always telling people, okay, first of all, no one cares how you say what you say. They're not listening to that. They're listening to what you're saying. And if you can communicate your idea clearly, communication done, job done, like, yay, you, right? And if you feel good about the skills you have, no matter what the level is, when you speak with confidence, you speak differently. And then people listen differently.
Cool.
And that shifts them and they relax and then they start learning faster. It's amazing.
No, I love that. And I think there is Well, and I love doing these podcasts because it is really fun for me to, I hear someone, okay, what do you do for work? We exchange a few sentences, cool. But no, like, really, what do you do, right? Because, like, someone might hear, like, English coaching, they think, okay, but, really digging into that. And I think there's a correlation here in this idea of confidence, right? And becoming good at something, and really just the confidence that comes with that. And my personal perspective of your evolution with AI in a very short time, because like you said before we got cut off, you were like, no to AI. But to be honest, like, the teacher in me, and maybe even the teacher in you, sees that as maybe it wasn't like a no to AI, but maybe like a, I don't really know how to use this. This is really overwhelming. I'm a little scared of it, and I don't think I can totally understand it.
Right.
But like now, where, in all your roles with all your hats, like what do you how do you use AI every day? And can you think of a time when you didn't now?
I can think clearly from when I didn't. It was the day you asked me to do something with ChatGPT, and I was like, no. You're all, just do it. And from that moment on, every day, every single day, I use ChatGPT constantly for work, for personal things. ChatGPT interpreted a dream of mine the other night, which I need to send you because it's pretty nice. And then
Adds to resource page.
right,
Interpreted dream.
dream interpretations. I'm using it to develop the business plan for the coaching model that I'm going to be launching. And recently, I have this really creative friend who's written 2 children's books now, and the first time she asked me to help with it, I was, using Canva and as a layout program. So I'm really very experienced in document layout and book layout and all this stuff. And I'm used to using programs that are very highly specialized and extremely precise. Canva ain't that. Canva's like, this looks good. It's fine. Just do that. Just move it over here a little bit. It's good.
That is the voice of Canva.
Looks fine. So it was really frustrating because I'm like, oh, I need to make the measurement. And it's like, I don't do that. I don't do that measurement. I do these measurements, like quarters. You can, like, what? So that was an experience, and it was frustrating. But now that I've gone through it, I understand, and you're on the other end going, I know so many people who use this. It can't be that hard. Get over it.
I understand how that could come off, but but to translate, that was more like, I know it's possible because it's being done.
I'm not
saying
that's how I meant it. It just makes me laugh when I think of it that way, because that's how I'm like, just stop fighting it and just do it, right? It was just funny. So anyway, so then now that we've transitioned to the new book, I get this question, hey, have you ever used Dolly? No, you probably know that. And but no, you want to try it? Okay. So here we go. And again, with, so Dolly, unless you have some higher level version, has been fully incorporated into ChatGPT, and it's image generation engine, I think. So that was really enlightening, because you have zero control over what's happening, right? There's no like layers, switches on and off. You can't do anything. All you can do is tell it what you want it to do. And that, it turns out, is really challenging. So all my communication skills, right? Understanding, okay, what I've been doing isn't working because I started with one character set and it kept drifting away from, and I'm like, no, like this. And it kept going. So I finally stopped. I asked it itself, how do I do this? You stop making these things, right? So we developed a character sketch, and like all the criteria, and it taught me how to talk to it.
I love that.
And yeah, it's incredible. I mean, it's really truly astounding. It still isn't, that particular interface is still not as precise as my designer OCD brain wants it to be, but I put that on me, right? Because this is the first time I'm using it. I feel good about what we've created, but I know there's more. And it's really about me learning how to have that conversation. And it's funny, I was reminded, so there's this Star Trek movie from like the 80s, I think, maybe the early 90s. And the team from the Enterprise, the original team, goes back in time to Earth to save the whales, or I don't know, I don't remember. Doesn't matter. But Scotty, the engineer guy who was always talking to the computer, right, walks up to this like old super clunky, computer clage, right, monitor, and goes, "Computer," and it does nothing. And he's, "Computer," and he goes, "Oh, you have to type." I remember that. And he starts typing. And then I thought, yeah, but then in the future, which is way past this date, right? Way past, the computer was still talking all clunky and robotic and weird. Like, we have so far past that in such a short period of time.
Yeah.
It's jaw dropping. Like, every single day, I'm like, what? You can do that? What?
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's really amazing.
Well, and I mean, Jam AI, we're doing a whole, I don't want to call it a relaunch right now, but we're basically redoing and re-scrapping and trashing and all the things to like 80% of our course content, because
Mhm.
like you said, it's always evolving. It's always
Mhm.
evolving. So, I mean, even to your point, Jam had this huge incredible module on Mid-Journey, right?
Mhm.
And then time happens, life happens, and then once we eventually look back at it, we're like, oh,
It's
none of this
outdated.
is relevant anymore,
Yeah.
And it's always something that we're having to stay on top of. And, you know, I think so. For those who can't read Vivienne and I's mind, Vivienne helped. Vivienne, that's an inside joke because apparently no one can ever read mine. It's so weird. But Vivienne is yeah, we're working on it, y'all.
We are. We're getting better.
And sometimes I write something, I'm like, only my AI understands what I'm trying to say. But no, but
Yeah.
she's been helping me with these gifts, these books that we've been writing for birthday gifts for my nephews, and so that was some context there. But the cool in this conversation talking about those books, I was like, I asked you a question about Dolly, right? And the irony of that doesn't, like, I recognize the irony there, right? Like, I am one of the 2-person team on Jam, and we just brought on someone else. So I'm one of 3 people, on Jam. And in theory, I should know these things, and I don't. And I'm so far behind, and I never plan on staying caught up because it's just not in me. And I'm so grateful that I work alongside Jam, who has the energy and the capacity to stay on top of this stuff, because by the time I'm like, okay, I guess I'll try Dolly, she's already found 6 new programs that work way better, and
Yeah.
I'm just so grateful that because of how quickly everything evolves in this space, that we have the opportunity to learn from someone who stays so on top of things.
Right, exactly. I mean, this is another part of the same conversation I was referring to earlier, is that it's virtually impossible
Yeah.
to stay on top of all of the changes in all of the programs across the industry. It's impossible, right? I mean, because the minute you learn something tomorrow, it's different,
Totally.
right? I mean, it's as revolutionary as websites were, as marketing vehicles, right? So coming from the world of print advertising, the idea that you could just go, oh, I made a mistake. Oh God. Right. And then you go on the web and you're like, it's gone, bing, bing, you know, no one ever saw that.
Yeah.
Never happened. It's incredible, you know, and I remember the impact of that, and this blows that like way out of the water, right? So yeah, I too am grateful that, you know, Jam and, you know, the people like her are out there, you know, paying attention, combing through all this stuff and distilling it in a way that us regular folks can easily absorb, easily digest, and then do something with, right?
Totally.
I have a friend who's using Jam coursework right now to develop. He wants to. Well, it doesn't matter what he's doing, but he's using it to teach himself, right? Very specific things about AI and how to use it for these things that he wants to incorporate in his business. And it's so interesting to watch him because he spent all this time on YouTube. And I'm like, no, go here. Go here.
Yeah.
Learn that. And, you know, he said, I spent all this time and I'm so much farther ahead. Yeah, that's how it works.
Well, thanks for
Being
the referral. We appreciate that. And you know, it is. It's like when Jam and I sit and we go back and forth on like what the true value is of Club Jam and Jam AI, at the end of the day, I mean, it's doing a ton of work and research so you don't have to, and then translating it to you in a way that's tangible and understandable. But
right.
I want to go back to your topic, your conversation. Words are hard. I want to go back to this conversation earlier that you said even just, you know, a few months ago, really, that you were like, I don't want to use ChatGPT, right? And well, one, let me stop there because you mentioned something that I think is worth pointing out, and it could be argued. Another one of my hats is an environmentalist, right? I have a nonprofit that works on that, and AI, you know, is one of the enemies.
Yeah.
And I will say, I'm a true believer in this idea of you don't know what you don't know. And so until this huge issue arose, AI is terrible for the environment. Now there's an issue to at least solve. And that's kind of how I'm choosing to look at it. It's like, okay, we know that this is causing problems, and now we know there's a problem to fix. And that might be naive, but that's how I'm choosing to believe in it. Anyway,
I don't find that naive at all. Don't forget what you're about to say. But I don't find that naive. That's how I deal with the, you know, the impact on humanity, right? And yes, of course, there's environmental issues. You know, everything we do as humans has an impact. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So, and you're right, we don't know what we don't know, and then we know it. Then we have an opportunity to fix it, and that isn't naive. That's just practical, right? At this point, there's no way to just shut it off, which is what I think the extremists would like to have happen. But that's not going to happen. So how do we make it so it works, right? For all the problems it's causing. And that remains to be seen. So.
well, and just, it's not, we also have to acknowledge how much good it's doing in the world.
Exactly.
I mean, how
Right.
much research it's allowing people to access and information that they wouldn't otherwise be privy to. And I mean, it's incredible, right? So, but to that point of you being just even a few months ago being like, no, I don't want to touch it, to you now being like, I use AI every day in my personal and professional life. What is one thing that you're really looking to dig into more with your hands-on experience with AI?
One thing, only one.
Give me you.
I will. Business strategy and analytics. Being able to leverage AI to, like, as a business consultant, right? So someone comes to me and they have a problem in their business, and they can't, they're too deep in the weeds and they can't see it. So they need someone objective to be able to step back and go, okay, this is what I see, right? That kind of activity used to take weeks, right? Sometimes months, depending on the complexity of the problem and the size of the business.
Yeah.
Now right? I mean, the longest part of that is getting in there and being in the person's business and having the conversations with them. After that happens, it's like, bam, right? You have information right away. You are able to respond right away. And at the speed at which business is done today, that is incredibly important and valuable, right? So I'm looking forward to learning how to use it more for that. Creatively, this little dabbling I've done in DALL-E with these images, I don't really foresee myself going back down the graphics road, but it's really interesting and really cool. And now I want to know everything there is to know about like Midjourney and all the other ones. I'm really stoked about it. Um, so uh and you know, on a personal level, right? I'm able to use ChatGPT as like a sounding board, right? For emotional stuff. Or, you know, if I like, I have a problem with this friend and I don't understand. Okay, so here's the situation, right? How do I react to this? Am I overreacting? And you know, my roommate, I can go and do that to him, and he looks at me and he goes, "Really, dude?
He
Take
doesn't
that out
give
on
you
your own?"
any alternative options to choose from and tell you
No,
doing it the right way.
no, and never any validation, never. But ChatGPT is really interesting, and whether I mean, I can see that people could potentially go down a tricky road with that, but for me, it's really valuable because it allows me to dig into a problem, no matter what it is, and very quickly get perspective, which then enables me to very quickly move on from that problem
Yeah.
with either a resolution or well, okay, I don't need to think about this anymore. So it helps me clear my mental decks, you know. And I'm out there advocating it to all the boomers who have businesses. I'm like, dude, you need to not do that manually anymore because there's this. Let me show you. It's so easy. You would never. And they're like, I'm like, okay, well, that was me. Now I'm an evangelist.
Oh gosh. Well, okay, I appreciate that. And then yeah, it's interesting that as much as you want to like you think what you know is true and right, it's hard to get other people on board, and that's for better or worse, right? Depending on the perspective. And sometimes it's like, man, only if they only knew what I know, or if they only, you know, but and I'm sure it goes both ways in a way, right?
Sure.
So
And I feel like, you know, they'll either do it or they won't. And both are fine.
totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, I appreciate this. I appreciate you and all your hats, and I love being able to work with you on random. Hey, Vivienne, you want to help me write a children's book? Or hey, Vivienne, you want to? I really appreciate that. And you know, earlier you said you're sometimes able to just like jump on in, and I think that's a huge value to so many. You know, if someone were listening to this and they were interested more about your consulting services, can you tell them a little bit about what that looks like to work with you?
At a very high level, I am launching a consulting practice that will be sort of based on the idea of having someone to talk to. I am a certified executive leadership coach, but I am not here to bring yet another packaged, jargony, um, high touch, um, coaching practice to a saturated market. Um, I I'd long wanted to launch a coaching practice, but I'd really struggled with what am I offering, right? How do I offer this? And the English coaching showed me, it just shone a light on how it could work because I have, I don't know, somewhere between 6 and 10 people that I see regularly multiple times a week. And we're doing personal coaching, we're doing business coaching. I have coached people in, you know, making decisions about university, making decisions about careers. And all under the guise of English conversational coaching, right? But I'm deep into it with this one particular woman from China about her traumatic family stuff and how it's impacting her life today as a 30-something-year-old woman and how we move through it, right? We talk about things that came up in therapy and how she can deal with, this, that, and the other thing, and what are some practical ways to manage that. And I really feel like my value is listening in, using my vast, multifaceted, highly colorful experience, right, of the good and very bad in some cases, to inform, my offer, which is guidance. Sometimes just an ear. Sometimes people just need to be heard, right? And so, it can kind of be anything. How to become a better leader, how to be a better friend. How do I deal with my recalcitrant teenager? How do I talk to them? What do I say? How do I relate? It can be personal, it can be professional, it can be anything, right? But I can tell you exactly what it's not, and it's not what everyone else is out there doing. Not that any of that is bad. It's just not me.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm really excited to reflect more on this. And I don't really have the words for it yet, but just this idea of how much each human offers and the value of each unique human, whether it be they're wearing many hats or whatever their titles or title might be. I think there's something really cool to dig into more about this idea that every person has so much to offer and every person is their own brand, and there's something out there. I think that's cool. So thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for talking to us a little bit about how you were so anti-AI, and now here you are preaching it to the world. And we appreciate you, and I'm excited to keep working with you on whatever else comes our way.
Yeah, sounds great. Me too. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Have a good one. Talk soon.
You too. Bye-bye.